Nick, thank you for doing the talk with me.
Of course.
Do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
My name is Nick. I'm a trainer. Uh, I help people with their fitness goals, whether that's uh, hypertrophy, whether that's strength, whether that's injury prevention, whether that's helping injury rehabilitation. I've worked in Toronto. I've worked in all over the world: Dubai, Switzerland, South America, Europe, you name it. Yeah.
Nice. Right. First question. What makes you to be passionate about being a trainer?
I think when I got into this, the biggest thing for me was I want to help as many people as I could. And so what keeps me going today and what has kept me going for a long time was just consistently helping people. Was just how can I keep helping people, at least in a not as traditional way as more people think when they think of help, when they think of medicine, when they think of all the things related to health. They people automatically think like, doctor or, surgeon or whatever it is. And I think I opted to choose a more non-traditional route going about that.
Hmm. And how important do you think it is to have a trainer? If I'm trying to get into weightlifting,
Right.
Let's say I've never done it before.
Yeah.
Would you say it's important to have a trainer, or maybe should I try it out by myself first?
I
What
think
would you say?
I think my answer to that question would depend on the individual, depend on what the individual's goal is, right? I think in anything, like in any sport, in any discipline you do, I think having a coach is important. Just in general, especially if you want to do the thing that you want to do properly, or you want to excel at it at a high level, or if you want to improve really fast, or if you want to make sure you're doing it right, right? It's like, we can play soccer casually, right? And just as friends and just whatever. But what if one day I was like, hey, I want to get better, right? Probably that's a good time to invest in a soccer coach, for example. But if I just want to play casually for the rest of my life and I couldn't care less of whether I did better or whether I get injured, like that didn't matter to me because I'm playing so casually, it wouldn't matter, then probably I wouldn't need to invest in that way. It's probably not that important to me. But for people who tell me, hey, like my fitness goals are important, and I want to do this, within a time frame, and I want to do it right, and I want to not get injured because the gym's a place where it's very easy to get injured, as we know. Then probably a good idea to invest in a professional that could help you guide you along that pathway.
Right. I mean, no, yeah, I agree with you. Whenever I see my friends who are getting into weightlifting, what I tell them is, hey, find a trainer.
Yeah.
I even know great trainers like you.
Thank you.
I could introduce them to you.
Yeah.
But what they seem to think is that they don't really want to spend money on something they regard as a hobby.
Right.
Like they're not trying to become a professional. So
right.
They say I might as well just try to go to the gym by myself.
Yeah.
But I have a little bit of this frustration. If you were to just have a trainer, you would do much faster, much better,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So I don't know. I have that frustration, but
I hear you. Like it's so funny because like I don't take up a ton of hobbies. Like the hobbies I take up in are the ones I try to invest the most in. And for me, like it's very hard to do a hobby like casually. If I'm going to play soccer, I'm going to play. I'm going to play to win. I'm going to try to do my best. Like it doesn't. I've never felt the drive or the need to take up a hobby that I want to invest time in, and just do it very like super casually to the point where like, I'm not trying to improve. Like even like, I've told you I started dance, like I told you I started Latin dance, bachata, like, and like from the get-go, I'm just like, okay, I'm taking lessons, I'm taking privates, I'm doing this because I want to get better. Like the fun part of hobbies is to me is that journey of getting better at whatever that craft is, and that's what all of life is about, right? It's not all about just, working and whatever. It's about like, all these other hobbies that we have, and that's kind of what makes you, you. When you introduce yourself to someone, it's like, hey, like I do this work, but I also have all these hobbies, right?
Mm-hmm. So how does one find a qualified trainer?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Because let me tell you why.
Yeah.
I asked this question. I think if you were to just try to find a trainer from a public gym, I don't think the chances are great that you're going to find a good one.
Right.
I think the bar for becoming a trainer is too low.
Yep.
Is my understanding.
Yep.
And you can just become trainer.
Yep.
Which I think take it to be very problematic.
Yeah.
So there's so many trainers out there. Only some of them are qualified to be a trainer.
Yeah.
So how does one go on about finding that good qualified trainer?
That's a fantastic question, because like you said, the bar is really low for being a human trainer, and there's no one really checking, certifications and everything. And even at that point, I know some people with really good certifications who are just not great trainers, right? Like there's a skill that's involved with being like a personal trainer that sometimes isn't taught. Managing people, like understanding like individual people, who they are, like what their motivations are, how they react to certain things, and adapting to that. Like it's not stuff you teach sitting in a classroom. It's very much stuff that you have to learn through experience, or learn through a mentor, or whatever it might be. So finding a personal trainer, I can understand the difficulty. I think the first step, of course, is at some level having some level of certification, making sure they know what they're talking about. Their education is coming from somewhere. And I think the second point is looking at their client results, right? Looking what are their clients saying about them, not what are they saying about themselves, but what are other people saying about them. I think it's a good idea. So if you reached out to some of their clients, being like, hey, like I'm so interested in, John, who's your personal trainer, like, can you tell me about him? Like what's his style like? Like, what does he do? Da, 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 da. And I think that's a good place to start, because if 10 out of 10 or 20 out of 20 of his clients be like, yeah, John's amazing, like you should start with him right away, I think he'll match probably a good idea to send him a message to say, hey, like, this is what I'm interested in. This is what my goals are. Like, can you help me?
Mm-hmm. I know if you wanted to try therapy, the general guideline is you try 3 sessions with them.
Sure.
And see if they're the right match with you.
Sure.
Would you say the same for trainer?
Yeah, I could say that. I don't know if 3 is like my bar. Like some people could be at 1 session, they kind of figure out like, our personalities don't match. It could be at 2 sessions, 3, 4, 5 sessions that you find out, our personalities don't match. Maybe this isn't a good fit. But I think 3 is actually kind of a good measure. So anywhere between like 1 and 5, I think is a good kind of measure of whether your personalities match, whether you think they'll help you hit your goals, whether, they're injuring you or not. Like, I think that's kind of a good time frame.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember if I told you this, but I did have a trainer before seeing you.
Yes.
I was doing deadlift with him,
and
my back was hurting. I don't know if it's the back, spine.
Right.
I don't know what it is specifically, but what he told me was that I think you have core issues.
Okay.
So your core is just not strong enough yet.
Yeah.
So it's going to get stronger eventually, and that problem's going to go away. I was a little bit skeptical about this. So yeah, is it really the problem? So yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I run into a lot of situations like that, and the idea to just, if you're feeling that something hurts, just to kind of push through it, maybe for a small percentage of the population that works, and eventually that goes away and they're fine. But I found that in majority of the population, let's say 90%, it's probably not the right approach to go, because that leads to something more serious in the long run. And probably trying to find the root of the problem, or trying to find a different exercise that does kind of the same thing, it's probably your best place to go until you can address what the main cause is. Whether that's a weak core, whether that's form, whether that's whatever it is, it's probably a bad idea to just keep deadlifting through the pain just to see, especially deadlift being such like a multi-muscle exercise, and like it's so technical. It's not as simple as just kind of like picking up something from the ground, especially when you're using a lot of weight.
The problem is that if you're not a professional, you just don't know if things are going the right way. Like I remember, like when I was having pain, and whether it was elbow or whatever, I wouldn't know if it's how it's supposed to feel.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, is it the muscles that are hurting? Is it the bone? I don't know. Are things going right?
Yeah.
I would always, ask those questions.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I think generally a good rule of thumb of whether something's going right, whether it's like bad pain versus good pain, is kind of that like burning sensation. If something feels like there's lactic acid building up and we feel that kind of burn, I think that's generally like a good sign. That's generally just the muscles working. If it feels kind of anything different from that, where it feels uncomfortable or feels sore, painful, but not burning, like I think that's when we can be like, ooh, that's not good. That's bad pain, and let's stay away from that. There's something not working well about this exercise or this movement for you. and we're stopping that immediately. Right. We're doing something else.
So generally, you wouldn't recommend them to just push through the pain.
No. Right. Yeah. Probably a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. What's the most memorable achievements you have made with your clients?
Oh my God, most memorable achievements.
I would say it's hard to pick one, but
yeah, that is hard. Oh my God, because I've been doing this for so long. I think a very memorable, I don't know, like a subsect of memorable achievements that I have in my brain are a lot of people who come to me with debilitating injuries that they've had for like years.
Sorry, I'm not sure about the word you just used.
Debilitating, like life-changing injuries. Like, you know, walking became hard for them. Okay. You know, sitting up became hard for them. Stuff like that. Like stuff that made like their daily life almost impossible to structure and to move about properly. I think some of my biggest achievements are when those people, you know, after a few sessions with me or after, you know, like months with me, they're just like, hey, like, I'm able to do my normal life properly. I can play with my kids. I can stand up from bed. I can wash my hair. And I don't feel uncomfortable. There's no pain. Like their quality of life totally changed. And I think those are my, like, that specific subsect of clients. Those are like my biggest achievements in my head, because it's like I've impacted someone's life so much where literally their quality of life changed. You know, like, and so it just, there's no better feeling than hearing like, hey, like, you know, like I can walk again. Like I can walk without pain again. And I love walking and I can do this and I can go outside and wow, amazing. Yeah. Or like, you know, I can pick up my kid or I can play with my kids again. My back doesn't hurt. And like, wow, there's no better feeling.
So you are really literally a doctor then in this sense.
In this sense, yeah, I'd say.
Right. Okay. If someone is trying to lose weight, but they really, really enjoy eating,
yeah,
how would you help them? Because I ask this because I used to be a little bit judgmental of people who say, "Oh, I'm gonna lose weight," but they fail.
Yeah.
But I noticed that some people just love eating so much.
Yeah.
Like it seems that the pleasure they get from eating is literally much more higher than the pleasure I get from eating.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Of course.
So I became more sympathetic towards their struggle.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what I would tell them to do. Because I don't think the answer is, hey, just only eat chicken breast and broccoli.
Yeah, no, of
I
course.
Don't think that would be the answer.
I don't think so either.
Right.
I think in this day and age, especially with understanding like nutritional science, where at the end of the day, it's really calories in versus calories out, especially when we're talking about pure weight loss. Eating a specific amount of calories under what your body is exerting every day. So if your body's maintenance is 2,000 calories and you're eating 1,800 and you stay within that 1,800 calories, kind of regardless of what you eat, you will lose weight. Would I recommend eating whatever you want for those 1,800 calories? Probably no, because, you know, stuff that's important, micronutrients and you know, all that stuff is still very important. Protein is very important for maintaining muscle mass. But if we're talking about pure weight loss, just weight loss, all you need to do is eat under whatever your maintenance calories is.
And staying healthy too, I would say.
Yes. See that's two separate things, because you can lose weight and not be healthy.
Right.
But that's why I said we're talking about pure weight loss.
That's not what you would recommend to your
No, I would not.
Right.
And so that's what I would say to someone who enjoys eating that much, because at the end of the day, the question you have to ask is, do you love eating so much that's more important to you than this goal of weight loss? And if their answer is yes, that's more important, eating, then eat. Then we don't need to have this discussion about losing weight. Losing weight for you is just kind of a thought. It's not actually a goal. Because if losing weight was that important to you, restricting your food a little bit shouldn't be that big of a problem. And there's so many strategies these days, especially nowadays, especially in 2026, where you have sugar-free everything. You know, you have candy that's sugar-free, you have sauces, you have everything that's sugar-free, you have this with protein, you have there's so many alternatives that you can do to make your food pretty tasty and relatively low cal. It's hard for me to justify not restricting yourself a bit, even if you like sweets. I know people who lose weight and they still eat ice cream every day. because they're under their total calorie amount, right? And they're okay with their ice cream taking a certain amount of their calories and them eating pretty clean for the rest of their calories, or at least lower calorie for the rest of their meals. And they have ice cream every day. Guess what? They lose weight.
Yeah, well, I ask this because I'm someone who believes that for sure you have some level of willpower. You can't have zero willpower and achieve something. But I believe that strategy might be more important than the sheer willpower.
I agree. Yeah, like the strategy definitely helps with the willpower, so your willpower doesn't have to be like super strong. So the strategy and planning your meals ahead of time is probably important. The reason why I generally recommend people who are serious about their weight loss to relatively eat the same things every day is because it restricts the amount of choices you have to make every day. If you're every day like free flow, just choosing what you eat at random and trying to calculate, your macronutrients and your calories like at random that way, it makes it a lot harder to adhere to that number. Because if something happens, like I'm a little over today because I couldn't get this chicken breast or whatever it is, right? Eating the same things every day ensures that not only decision fatigue isn't there, so you don't have to make these choices every single day of what you're eating, but it ensures that you're eating the same calories relatively every day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
No, okay. But the problem is, it seems that I'm someone who has no problem with eating the same meal every day.
Yep.
I think it's usually the people who are trying to lose weight who have the struggle with sticking to the same meals.
Yeah.
Would you say so?
Yeah, I agree.
But there's no alternative they can take?
There is. It's just sticking to your same meals is easier. Like when we're talking about strategizing and making a plan, it's just easier in terms of strategy. Yeah, you could, if you really can do it, you can eat whatever you want every day and figure that out on the daily. It's possible, but it makes it a lot harder to adhere to.
Right. So there's willpower and strategy. And there's also your desire of wanting to eat good food.
Yeah.
And your desire of wanting to lose weight, competing.
Yeah.
But you would still say the desire of you wanting to lose weight has to be higher than the desire of you wanting to eat delicious food.
Yeah, I like, yes, and like you could still make like your meal food like delicious. Like it's not hard to make depending on what you find delicious is. But I think this day and age you can really make any meal pretty freaking good.
Even if with keeping it healthy.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I firmly believe that. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think another problem we have nowadays is that there's way too much information. Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I'm not only talking about weightlifting.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it may be.
Everything.
Take weightlifting, for example. Like I hear someone says, "Hey, you should do deadlift." Someone says, "No, don't do deadlift. It's dangerous." Someone says, "Hey, do X amount of volume per week." No, do Y amount of volume per week. There's so much information out there.
Yeah.
What's interesting too is that they're all in shape. Like if it were the case that the person who says, "Hey, do A" is not in shape, and the person who says, "Do B" is in shape, then I know who to listen to, right? Go to person B.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
Yeah.
Like people have all different kinds of information.
Yeah.
They have made their own achievements in their own way.
100%.
As someone who's not an expert, we are very much confused.
Yeah.
What do we do about this?
Because the answer at the end of the day is that there's no one answer.
Right.
That's like saying it's the same questions like how do you achieve success in life? Well, first of all, it depends what success means to you. Depends what being in shape means to you, right? And there's a million answers of how to get successful, whether it's owning a business or doing this, well, whatever it is. Same with being in shape. There's a million answers of how you can do it. High volume works, low volume works. Doing deadlifts works, not doing deadlifts also works, right? So there's not really a one-size-fits-all answer. And I generally tend to find, I'm going to say all the time, anyone who tells you any type of absolute towards any question, especially in terms of health and wellness, for 99% of questions, I probably wouldn't listen to them. Because the answer for almost every question in health and wellness is it depends. Depends on your body, depends on whether you're comfortable doing it. Like if I had a client who told me right away, I'm uncomfortable with doing deadlifts, I'm not going to force them to do deadlifts. They just told me they're uncomfortable with doing deadlifts for whatever reason it might be. Maybe they just don't like the exercise. For them, they don't like it. Okay, that's fine. We're going to find an alternative, something that works with you, but it doesn't mean they won't get in shape because they're not deadlifting or not squatting or whatever it might be. So the answer is very much is it depends. And especially with the amount of information there is out there, I think the best thing to do is one, look for people who are, more experts in their field, rather than some random like person who's in shape. It's don't determine the quality of their information based purely on the shape the individual is. Because there's a lot of, for example, there's a lot of top level athletes and bodybuilders and whatever it is who aren't the best coaches.
Right.
Like if you want to learn how to run really fast, I wouldn't recommend you try to learn from like Usain Bolt.
Right.
You know what I mean? I would say go to his coach and ask him. He probably knows how. Yeah, right? And Usain Bolt's coach probably, isn't one of the fastest people in the world, but he damn knows well how to coach someone to being the fastest person in the world. So a lot of times it doesn't align that way where, oh, he's in really good shape, he must know all the answers. That's not true. At least not in every case. There are some people, of course, that matches up, right? They're in great shape and they know their stuff. Amazing. But a lot of times, especially in this day and age with Instagram and TikTok and everything, I find that people judge the quality and the validity of the information based purely on the physique that person is in. And I understand that logic, but at the same time, don't base it purely on just their physique. Based on like other factors too, based on whether do they have the educational background? Do they have clients that can prove their claims? And also, to one point too is, I always tell a lot of people, like if they have a claim that they're bringing up, try it. Hey, eggs, I heard eggs were bad for me. Okay, try not eating eggs. Let me know how that feels. You feel better? Amazing. No one says you have to eat eggs, but some people are like, oh, like eggs are the best food in the world. Okay, try it. Eat more eggs. See how that feels with you. Let's give it a feel. Let's try. At the end of the day, I'm not going to say that's how everything was discovered in like health and fitness, but that's how a lot of things were discovered. Is a lot of people tried it, and that's how a lot of science works too, right? A lot of people tried it for a long period of time, and they found that 10 out of 10 times that worked, or 8 out of 10 times that worked. Okay, 8 out of 10 is good enough for me. Let's make that a standard. Eggs are pretty freaking good, for example.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I have a couple more questions.
Please.
Do you have a general guideline for how much volume to train per week? So like how many sets, how many reps, how many times a week, how heavy you should lift? I feel like I think I know what your answer is, but I'm still gonna ask.
It depends.
Yes.
Because it's a good question. It's a question I receive a lot. Like out of any question of like, everyone always asks me how much volume, how many times to train so-and-so, what's the best exercise for so-and-so, should I do this exercise or not? And my answer, and people hate it, is always it depends. Because it depends on the individual. Depends how many years you've trained, whether you're trained or not. Depends how's your recovery. Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Like, am I going to tell someone to do super high volume twice a day, 5 times a week, and they sleep an hour a day and they eat 100 calories a day? That sounds silly, right? It's like, wow, that's dumb. Like, they're going to be destroyed. Exactly. That's the thing. I know literally nothing about you, so it's really hard for me to offer proper guidelines. Especially specific guidelines. When people ask me specific, could I give you something general? Sure. Probably a good idea to train somewhere between 3 to 5 times a week, anywhere in there. Probably some aspect of hitting most of your body parts twice a week. Somewhere in there. Depending on your recovery, depending on the intensity of your exercises. Some people train, they're like, some people take my training style. For example, my training styles was more so low volume and high intensity. And they go, well, Nick trains 3 times a week. How come I can't train 3 times a week, for example? And he only does 6 sets total for his one training session. Well, how come that didn't work for me? Well, I don't know how intense you're training. If you're not going to failure, then this style of training is not going to work for you, right? Maybe higher volume is a better approach for you. So the approach depends on the individual as well,
right?
Or always depends on the individual.
Depends on the person. their health condition,
100%.
their life circumstances?
100%.
Okay.
How much energy they have? What do they do for work? You know, like, am I going to tell someone who does construction to do high volume? Probably not a good idea. You know, they're already destroying their body, you know, 7 days a week on the construction site. Probably not a good idea to absolutely wreck your body at the gym every day.
I have a friend who's a nurse.
Mm.
He can only afford to go to the gym 3 times every 2 weeks.
Yep.
And he was asking me how should he train. I mean, I couldn't give him an answer because I'm not a trainer. But yeah, I guess life circumstances really matters.
Huge.
Because he's someone who works overshift during nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
So like his sleep schedule is different from regular people too.
Right, of course.
Yeah, different life circumstances,
100%.
health condition, so on and so forth. Okay. How to know if you're training with the right weight?
Training with the right weight?
Yeah. For example, let's say I'm doing dumbbell bench press, right? Let's say every reps of every set, I'm doing it with the perfect form. Is that too light? Or my form starts to break. Is that too heavy? How do I know what's the right weight?
What's your goal?
Progressive overload?
Okay. I think an easy way to determine whether the weight is appropriate for, let's say, a working set, so towards progressive overload, towards whether getting stronger or getting bigger muscles, whatever it is. If you're unable to maintain your form, let's say 80% of your form within the first 5-ish reps, it's probably a little too heavy. You know, if your form starts to break down significantly within the first 5 reps, it's probably a little too heavy for you.
What did you mean by 80% of the form?
Because saying you have 10 out of 10 form, like
a perfect form.
Like perfect form, with heavy enough weight, it's probably going to break down a little bit. And there's a certain level of form breakdown that you can handle before it being like, yeah, that's like totally no good anymore, right? And I think when you train hard enough, no matter what, there's going to be a little bit of form breakdown. Just like, you know, if you're doing rows and you start changing your form a little bit, like that's expected, especially if you're going heavy enough, especially if you're going high intensity enough. So that's why I say, like, you can afford about 20% of form breakdown, especially if you're using, let's say, appropriate load, like challenging load. You know, if the weight is too light, here's the thing. Here's the problem with that question. Because if the weight is too light, the weight generally doesn't really matter. And here's why I'm saying that. Because it depends how much volume you do. Because let's say I'm dumbbell pressing 40 pounds, okay? And, you know, first 10 reps I can do with 10 out of 10 form. Okay, but what if I'm trying to do 30 reps? By rep 30, it's going to start looking like an 8 out of 10 form, right? Like it's going to start getting really hard. Yeah. If I'm doing 80 pounds, yeah, within the first 5 reps, I'm probably doing 8 out of 10 form already there, right? So it just depends on your volume. That's the thing. That's why if your target volume is to fail somewhere between 6 to 8 reps, then, you know, within the first 5 reps, you're probably going to be at an 8 out of 10 form. And your form breakdown should only happen within the 6 to 8 reps there. And that's kind of when you know that's appropriate load, that's time to stop. But if your target rep range is 25 to 30 reps, 80 pounds is no longer the weight you're using. You know, you're using 40 pounds. And the first, 20 reps are going to look pretty good. And then it's only the last 10 reps are going to start struggling a little bit, for example. So I'm not going to say the weight doesn't matter, but it kind of doesn't matter because it depends on how many reps you're doing, how many sets you're doing. You know, if you're doing 10 sets of 10, maybe 40 pounds is appropriate. 10 sets of 10 is a lot of volume. I can't do 80 pounds for 10 sets of 10, right? So it really depends. Yeah. Right. It's a tough question. Because I know what you're asking, but this is more so my real answer towards whether the weight matters or not.
I think the problem is different for the individuals because for me, I think I care too much about the form.
Yeah.
Such that I probably should do more weight and care a little bit less about the form. And I also see people like who are just lifting way too heavy.
Yeah.
They are doing the lift, but
Yeah.
like, the form seems pretty dangerous to me.
Yeah, that's why I always say 8 out of 10 form. Like you're allowed 20% form breakdown. And I also going to say that depends also per person. Like if someone has, let's say, torn their labrum in their shoulder in like the past, and they're very prone to tearing like the shoulder, whether they have, their cartilage is just not great or their tendons aren't great there, whatever the case may be, I would say you should probably stick to 10 out of 10 form. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. It is what it is. You're going to lose out on a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. At least your shoulder is safe and you're not hurt. Your shoulder's not hurting every time you press, right? What I will say in terms of weight versus load versus anything, generally, if you're training hard enough in terms of that, you're going to relative failure. Kind of doesn't really matter what the weight is, as long as you can keep to relatively good form. Relatively good form and training to failure or close to failure. Combine those two variables together, kind of regardless what weight you do, you'll be okay. The only thing that matters in terms of volume is recovery. The more volume you do, the more recovery it takes. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it. Okay.
Last question. How does one know if they're making a good progress? If you were to take me as an example,
yeah.
I think it's been about 2 years since I started training seriously.
Yeah.
I think I'm at the point where some people start to notice, some people don't.
Yeah.
It's like if I were to get a haircut, some people would notice, oh,
yes.
hey, you got a haircut.
Yeah,
some people just don't, right?
Yeah.
And I think to myself, okay, it's been 2 years. Could I have done better so that most people would notice that I've been working out? Or am I doing well? I don't know, right?
Yeah. And I think that answer depends on what your goal is, right? Like if your goal was just like, hey, I just want to get stronger for the next 2 years, or when I start training years, I'm going to be like, yeah, you're making great progress, quantitatively, like your numbers have gotten higher, right? You're lifting more than you've ever lifted. Mm-hmm. You're PRing here, left, right, and center. Fucking amazing. If your goal is, hey, I want to build a better physique, maybe take off your shirt more often. Like, I don't know, it's hard, right? Okay, one, you can only gain there's only a certain amount of muscle you can gain per year, only a certain amount. And two, it's so dependent on how much food you're eating, how strict you are with it. And so there's so many extra variables there, right? And also there also is genetics in play too. I'm not going to say genetics don't matter, because they really do matter. Like Asians don't tend to grow muscle as fast, period. Right? It's just kind of how our genetics are. You don't see massive Asians everywhere. There are some, don't get me wrong, but that's not the normal, right? For example.
Right. Yeah, well, I try not to compare myself to others, but I do see people who have trained just as much as I have, or even less, or they spend less time than I have, and they're massive and they're big. And
yeah.
Am I doing okay? Am I doing right?
Yeah. And there's so many factors that play for that. And I've been in that pitfall myself, where it's just some people, I know some people who've barely trained and not only are huge and they barely diet and they're ripped, their body fat's oh my God, so many of those people, especially when you get more into the bodybuilding industry. And it's just oh yeah, they're barely dieting and they are shredded. I'm like, that's not fair. And there are some people who have a super hard time losing fat. The problem is we only look towards that 1 percentile of amazing,
right.
And we don't look at this other, most of the population where it's just they have a super hard time losing fat, or they have a super hard time gaining weight, where it takes extreme measures to get to that level.
I guess there is that spotlight effect.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way. It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
But back to the question, would you say, as long as you're making some progress, you're doing good? How would you measure it?
Again, that depends on the goals, but I would also measure. I would also measure it through.
How does one feel confident about their progress?
Generally, when the numbers are going up, because it's a relatively good quantitative measure of kind of your strength's increasing. So generally, when your strength's increase, if day one you can deadlift or let's say row 20 pounds for 10 reps, and by day 400 you can row 80 pounds for 10 reps, I can very confidently say you've gained muscle and you're stronger, you know, like without a doubt. Mm-hmm. Can I say that you've lost body fat? I can't, because that depends on your food as well. And the amount of muscle you gain also depends on your food. But I can say for sure you're stronger and you've gained some muscle, because to get from 20 pounds to 80 pounds, there has to be some change there. Your body had to have adapted to change to be able to take that new load, for sure. Could I say how much? No, because that depends on other factors too. Because being in the gym and training hard is a very important factor, but it's one of the factors. It's a very important one, but one of them.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think that's all I had to ask.
Amazing.
Is there anything you want to add?
I think a big part of what I want to give you credit for as one of my clients is something that a lot of coaches we often talk about is clients being trainable. So being a student or being a client, like when I learn something from like my mentors or I'm learning a new skill, being trainable is such a skill that we don't talk about these days as much. We just look at the coach being like, how are they doing? But we don't look at the student or the client being like, well, are they receiving the information properly? Are they doing the things they need to be doing in order to succeed? Because as a coach, I know my role is limited to, because I only see you, let's say I see you once or twice for 2 hours or 1 hour of the entire week. I only have so much control over your actions, mm-hmm. right? So my job pretty much for everyone is more so a guide. I can only guide you and point you in the right way. Hey, probably don't take path A, probably a good idea to take path B. But whichever path you decide to walk on is really up to you. Whether you decide to walk on that path or run through that path is also up to you. And so I have to give you kudos in being so trainable, in where like pretty much anytime I say, hey, it's probably a good idea to do this, not only will you be like, well, how do I do it? And like, how do I implement this better? And you'll do it. So like, huge kudos to you. And a lot of people, like, especially yourself, when I've told you this in the past, you're just like, well, like, doesn't everyone do that? I'm like, no. It doesn't happen too often. I'm very lucky that majority of my clients, you know, they come to me for a reason. So generally when I say, hey, go down path B, they'll probably go down path B. But I think in most cases, and a lot of trainers, a lot of coaches in every sport, in every discipline can agree with me that most people aren't very trainable. Like
did you say they are? They aren't.
They aren't.
Okay.
And it boggles my mind a lot of times, because it's just like, well, you came to that coach for a reason. You know, you asked them their advice for a reason. Why ask them their advice and not take it? Right? At least take it and try it and see if that works with you. If it doesn't work with them, don't work with them anymore. Go to a coach that you're willing to take their advice on things.
Well, there are reasons why I take your advice, because I trust you and you're a great coach.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you too. Thank you for your time, Nick.
Of course. That was awesome.